This is Mike Tatarsky, host of the Vietnam Weekly podcast and author of the Vietnam Weekly newsletter, coming to you from Ho Chi Minh City for the first time in a little while. I've got a few episodes lined up now, so things should be a bit more consistent in the coming weeks, I hope. If you had to guess which country in the European Union is the largest investor in Vietnam, which would you say? Germany or France would be understandable choices, since they are the bloc's two largest economies, but you would be wrong, as the answer is in fact the Netherlands, which accounted for over 15 billion in investments as of May through companies like Heineken, Unilever, and Friesland Campina. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's impressive for a country that only has the EU's 8th largest economy and 12th largest population. What do those ties look like on the ground? Today's guest is Daniël Stork, the outgoing Consul General of the Netherlands here in Ho Chi Minh City and a good friend of mine. He's been a pillar of the diplomatic community over the last 4 years here and a highly visible supporter of the art and LGBTQ communities. We discussed the tight economic relationship between the Netherlands and Vietnam, the shared water-related challenges the countries face thanks to their river deltas, major takeaways from his 4 years in the country, reflections on the art and LGBTQ communities, as just mentioned, and more. As always, if you have any comments, feedback, or guest ideas, get in touch at matatarsky@gmail.com. Let's get to my conversation with Daniël. Daniël, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot for inviting, Mike.
Yeah, of course. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the first diplomat we've had on, so a fun milestone.
Privilege.
Yeah.
Privilege.
Yeah. So I do want to get to some of your personal reflections on your time here with your posting winding down in a minute. But I thought we could kind of start. I remember when I first learned this, I was surprised. I imagine it probably surprises a lot of people that the Netherlands is the EU's top foreign investor in Vietnam. I mean, no offense intended to the Netherlands, but obviously it is a bit of a smaller country geographically and population wise. But yeah, I mean, a huge partnership with Vietnam. So I was wondering if you could kind of walk through some of the areas you guys really focus on here.
Well, listen, they love our cheese and our milk and our tulips as well. It is a good question, Mike, and we're of course always very proud and happy about this because in a country like Vietnam, these statistics matter. I'm sure you follow Vietnamese press as I do. And the measurements of investments and of statistics and of the growth of the economy and how countries contribute to that play an important role in the political relationship. So, yes, that statistic is true and it's valuable. Where does it come from? Well, it very much relates to the nature of the Vietnamese economy and our own economy, which both have an important agricultural component. So the Netherlands is currently still the second agricultural exporter in the world, only after the United States, which again, when you think about how small we are, then you also wonder, how is this possible? This is all about having invested in technology, in the productivity of agriculture. And this is something that Vietnam, in its own ambition, growth ambition, has very much aspired to introduce into Vietnam as well. These same technologies, these same. So if you look at the companies, a lot of them are in the agricultural sector, and they are very active in the Mekong Delta. They're very active in the highlands of Vietnam, but also in production locations around Ho Chi Minh City. Then the other part, which defines our relationship with Vietnam, is water. Of course, we both live in this city in the delta, in the water, and sometimes confronted by water. Now, I wouldn't say this very much contributes to the investment statistic, but it is a very important part of why we and Vietnam care about this relationship, the mutual benefit we have from it, from learning from each other how to live with water and not to be fighting water. And I think the third component, which you see now evolving over the last few years, is very much high tech. As you probably know, and your listeners, the Netherlands also plays an important part in the chip making industry with a high-tech area around the city of Eindhoven, Brainport, we call it. And again, there are a few companies which now, over these last few years, have started investing, and we're actually leading the way for European companies in the field of high tech in Vietnam. next to, of course, US companies and others like from South Korea. So I think that's another field which, when you look at the change, also again in the ambition of the Vietnamese uh, economy in how it wants to evolve, is very much moving from this traditional agriculture and land-based economy into a more high-tech and investing in education, investing again in technology as well. Yeah, the Netherlands also has that card to play. And the last one I shouldn't forget also is logistics. So both the Netherlands and Vietnam are located in quite crucial positions on our own continents. We are the gateway for the German market, which of course is the biggest economy in Europe. Vietnam is a gateway for Southeast Asia, and also very important in relation to countries like Malaysia or Singapore or China. And that also plays, of course, an important role. Our own experience in logistics is also something we're sharing now, whether it be in port development or in, again, flood management and how you deal with that, and also transport routes. And the last one is also airport development. So these are, I would say, these are the key parts of what makes that economic relationship between Vietnam and the Netherlands as vibrant as it is.
Yeah, and I mean, all those pretty much align with kind of as you mentioned, but like the main economic goals that the Vietnamese government is pursuing at the moment. I was wondering if you could maybe expand a little bit on the water cooperation, or maybe especially the Mekong Delta. That's a particular interest of mine. I've done a couple episodes on it. Fascinating place with some really serious challenges. And I know the Netherlands is kind of famed for its approach to water. So what could you tell us about that?
Well, it's a long-standing relationship. So, I mean, after Vietnamese reunification, the Netherlands was one of the first to also come in with development aid, and especially in the 90s, we were big on this. And up to, let's say, 15 years ago, our relationship was very much centered around development aid, and a lot of it was based on how to work and live with water, and that relates very much to agriculture as well. So, if you talk about the Mekong Delta, what we have done now around 10 years ago is develop the Mekong Delta Master Plan with the Ministry of Agriculture mostly, but also with the Prime Minister's office in Vietnam. And that lays out the groundwork for how you can have a sustainable economic development in the Mekong Delta, linking agriculture, water, and the logistical part all in one. And also, I think what for us is key in how we look at this, when you talk about change or economic change, is also really involving the businesses. So not just top down, you come as government and say, oh, we're going to do this way. No, if you want change to happen, and I think especially also in Vietnam, which has opened up so much to private enterprise, um, is to look at the companies as agents of change, to set out certain conditions of sustainability, for example, ESG, of how you want to do that change, and then work together. I think one of the concrete examples also that I've been seeing in these last years in the Mekong Delta is how to restore the mangroves along the coast of Cha Vinh province, for example, because of the important role they play in water purification, in coastal protection. You can do your prawn cultivation in the mangroves, so you can get many benefits in one, as long as the knowledge is there. That's where the universities also come in, and this is what we call the Dutch diamond, Mike. So we involve the businesses, we involve government, we involve education, and we involve civil society, those four corners of the diamond. And
Mm.
for education, especially, Wageningen University in the Netherlands is a key university for rural development, also in tropical low-lying areas like the Mekong Delta. So they've done a lot of knowledge investments. And another one is so a specific angle we've been focusing on is saline water intrusion. And of course, because of all this agriculture and industrial development, the land is slowly sinking away and causing more saline intrusion. So one thing is, of course, the bigger picture of climate change, but the other one is also that you, on a very local level, individual level, work with farmers, how they can cultivate crops which can actually deal with more saline water, and it is possible. So it's also about change of habits, change of mindset, uh, and also saying, guys, look at your river, all the sand you are mining in the rivers is going to cause much greater erosion and much faster, and will cause worse saline intrusion. So also there, if you're going to do sand mining, do it offshore. There's sand out there if you go 30 kilometers out. And that is also one, by the way, where the Dutch have a lot of expertise. As you know, in Dubai, for example, we're the ones who built the Palm Island uh, and
Right.
other such things. And of course, our own polders in the Netherlands are example of where you can get land from and then rebuild in a good way. So, yeah, it's a combination of different strands involving businesses, helping farmers at an individual level how to cope with the changing conditions, and looking how to prevent the erosion being worse from what it is. But yeah, like you, I love the Mekong Delta. It reminds me also of the Netherlands. It's flat, full of
Yeah.
water,
Mm.
and it's agricultural based. And sometimes just driving around there, you see these straight canals. And I was with my ambassador 2 years ago, one of his first times, and he's from that area just north of Amsterdam, which looks exactly like the Mekong Delta canals. Yeah, so it also somehow feels like home, and I think that's what makes our relationship between the Netherlands, specifically the Mekong Delta, even closer.
Yeah, yeah, I certainly feel that some ways. I mean, being from New Orleans, which has the added benefit of basically having the same climate as well, at least in the summer. But yeah, big delta and lots of man-made canals and many of the same challenges. Yeah, but yeah, I've seen this sand offshore sand mining in the news a few times. I am curious to see what happens with that, since you do consist. I mean, just last week I think there was an article about how construction projects here, they can't find enough sand, and I'm sure I've seen in person, I'm sure you have as well, but these riverbanks in the Delta that collapse and take houses with them. So yeah, I mean, that's something that needs a serious solution long term. So kind of moving into more personal reflections, I suppose. Could you remind me when you arrived here?
Yeah, I arrived actually on the first plane out of Paris back into Vietnam after COVID. So
Right.
I was posted to Algeria before I came,
Hmm.
and then we were stuck in the Netherlands waiting for Vietnam to reopen. And we
Hmm.
landed, I think it was 11th of September, 2021. So nearly 4 years ago.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously a lot has happened in that period. I mean, I suppose this is probably one of the more dynamic places you could be posted. Certainly more economically vibrant than Algeria, I suppose. Again, no no offense to Algeria, but what have kind of been some of the, I don't know, biggest takeaways you've had, or not most surprising maybe, but most interesting things you've seen over those 4 years?
Yeah, well, I think you used the word dynamic just now. I think what also that is true, and I think what also really characterizes Vietnam for me is this optimistic, upbeat, can-do mentality. So, I've lived in communist countries before. I grew up in two of them. My dad was ambassador in Cuba in the 80s, and then was posted to Romania in 1988, which was probably the worst communist uh, experiment going on at that time in 1988, with people literally becoming smaller. So you didn't even know in Romania what a shop was, because all the shop fronts were empty. So you didn't know a baker or a butcher or whatever. And people became smaller. So why I'm saying this is because you come to Vietnam, also communist country, socialist, and And so you might have some of these mindsets, and then you're struck also coming from Europe by this incredible, can-do mentality and not complaining. I've been to many countries also where people complaining about everything and about government and about things not moving fast enough and about lack of services. And I'm fascinated from a cultural point of view also by this resilience of Vietnamese people, which maybe comes from the war also. And I don't know, don't want to explain why Vietnamese are the way they are, but I have been struck by it, and I must say also I find it inspiring. And coming back to that people getting smaller. So it's funny, we talked about Dutch lady right in the beginning, the milk. Uh, and I think we fed a whole generation in the 90s of people who really came from hunger and not even having enough rice in this country at one point. And then people getting better nutrition, better education. And look at the next generation of Vietnamese. I don't know, Mike, when you look around, you're quite tall, but not as tall as uh, but the next generation of Vietnamese is really tall.
Yeah.
That's really tall kids. So this is a sign of progress. That people actually also the possibility for Vietnamese to go and study abroad. Many of them to travel. Of course, not easy for everybody, but many of them, and the interconnection of Vietnam with the rest of the world. So I find Vietnam pretty open to the rest of the world. Again, I've been in countries which are much more closed or were much more closed than Vietnam. And I think that has been an incredible transition of this city where we're living, Mike, from 1990 to a city very similar, I think, to the Bucharest I was living in 1988, to this city which now actually is more similar to the Asian metropolises around us than an Eastern European city of 1988. And it has grown incredibly. Not only people have become taller, but the number of people in these cities. You know that Saigon, which is the previous name of Ho Chi Minh City, it in 1960 was as big as Amsterdam. Actually, Amsterdam was bigger than Saigon. So 700,000 people in Saigon, 850,000 people in Amsterdam. Now, still 850,000. Saigon, what, maybe 12, 14 million?
Yeah, something like that.
So it just goes to show the incredible change. And what I find fascinating also on this kind of personal note is how, on the one hand, you feel this strong sense of tradition, of respecting the elders, of the altars back at home, of Tet celebrations. And then on the other hand, this mind-blowing speed of growth of the economy, city changing. I mean, I've seen so many heritage buildings disappear in this city, which of course breaks my heart. Um, at the same time, it's also part of that change, and it's also part of that optimism. And I sometimes feel like I'm the European on the sidelines saying, "Oh, don't." But then again, maybe we are the ones who really need to shift our perspective on how you arrange your country and how you deal with change. Me, that's been very I'd say a learning experience. And on a personal note, also the fact that my dad lived here. He worked here for a brief period and late 69, 70, around that time. And so being in the city and, of course, being a history buff and delving into the history of the country and the city, it's fascinating. And also the small role that we played as Dutch around this region of the world. I find that that was also highly satisfying. And lastly, cycling with you.
Yeah, it's a great place for cycling.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we can still get in one more ride before you head out. But yeah, I think that resilience and positivity that's one of my favorite aspects of being here too. I mean, I know the U.S. is a particularly bad example right now, but it's striking how such a rich country, of course, the wealth is very unevenly distributed, but can be so consumed by just hate, basically, for lack of a better word. And yeah, and here in Vietnam, there are valid things for people to complain about, and sometimes they do, but generally it's kind of like I'm gonna go about my day and try to make my life better. I know that's partially kind of the system as well, but it is quite fascinating just to see how different it is.
Yeah, and look, I think you touch upon a valid point because, of course, there are downsides, and I think you and me, we're very excited, and we're including many other people with the first metro line appearing.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
uh, I must say, I find traffic actually still quite fluid. If you would go to a city like Bangkok, you'll be stuck a lot more in a traffic. You
Yes.
take the car, but of course, you have the option of taking the Sky Train, which is much more present. I mean, what I do also really like about the city is the fact that you still have the hems, and you have sometimes, as I studied in Naples as a student, and it sometimes reminds me of the back streets of Naples, going into the
Mm.
hems where you look into the lives of people. Yeah, I mean, I love that as well, and I love walking around that kind of part of Ho Chi Minh City. But I think the country would also benefit from letting people engage. When we talked about the Dutch diamond and you talk about civil society, that's that fourth corner. Yeah, I think it is very important to have your citizens be part of the package. Now, again, as I say, I think people in general are quite satisfied with the growth and with things how it's moving along. But it is good to hear the voices and to let the voices be heard, and for the people in power to also do that. And again, I do see examples of it when you, for example, look at how the Viet Q, which are the Vietnamese who moved abroad after 75 mostly, how they are involved back into the country, and how they are given space to be entrepreneurs, to advise, to come with their knowledge. I I find that very hope giving. And you see also also in the people in power, there's a generational change going on. And I think, yeah, it offers many opportunities uh, for Vietnam to become an even stronger, open, interconnected country, which also looks at countries in the region like South Korea, and how they did their change over the past 60, 70 years. And so, yeah, I really look forward to coming back also then at some point here. And I'm sure it will have changed. I just hope they don't, again, I come back to this thing of the heritage. Don't just throw away all that you have, which also makes the city what it is. And don't just make this city look like every other glass and metal high-rise place, because you can always build those, but do it in, yeah, less interesting parts of town.
No, I know that it can be easier said than done sometimes. And actually, on speaking of society culture, kind of, I know you and also Ambassador Case up in Hanoi. You've both been pretty big. I don't know if patrons is too big of a word, but of kind of the arts, but also the LGBTQ communities. I know you've had a lot of events over the years in those spaces. And Vietnam, to its credit, is quite progressive relatively on LGBTQ issues. Of course, there's work to be done,
Yeah.
but much better than some peer countries. But what have you seen in those spaces?
Yeah, no, interesting point, Mike, and one very dear to our hearts. And I think from a social point of view, why is it important? Because it's also about having voices being heard, and I mean, art is also about freedom of expression and being able to express yourself through art. And when you are an LGBTIQ plus person or LGBT, and you are able to be yourself, it's also about expressing yourself. So I think this is very much in our mindset as Dutch, also the freedom we cherish, having been liberated by Americans in 1944, and Canadians, I should say, 1945, and British. We're always very, very grateful for having regained our freedom. I think Vietnamese also feel very strongly about their freedom. And that is also about, yeah, these individual freedoms. And that boils down to art. So I see a city where there is still a need for, let's say, a big modern art museum in Ho Chi Minh City, on a par
Yeah.
with Hong Kong, Seoul, Singapore, Shanghai. I can name many examples where you really have these.
Mm.
And I think it would make the city more attractive for the people living in it, more livable. The combination of culture and green spaces and clean air, I think, would make the city great, even greater. And it's also very much, yeah, these are meeting places. You need this creative talent to move further ahead, again, to make these connections with the rest of the world, to put Vietnam on the cultural map, to have Vietnam, we have a gallery like Quinn or Mod Plus Plus or Medium. They are paving the way in this city to be present in the important art fairs in this region. And it really sells Vietnam. And again, you need to, as a government, I think it's important you support this. You support it even by just giving the space, right? If you have some heritage building and you say, why should we destroy this? We could maybe ask a private investor to restore it, and then transform it into an art space with private money. You can do that. All you need to do as government is say, yeah, we facilitate it because we believe it is important. And it's part of the fabric you need also to make a city, yeah, more livable. So that, I think, was the reasons we were always so present in these in the openings, supporting them, also connecting it to also Dutch private foundations like the Han Nefkens foundations. And yeah, I'm happy we're not alone. I see the Germans also quite active in this with the Goethe Institute. But it's very much about looking at what are the initiatives in a country. You should not be patronizing with these things. You shouldn't come here and say, oh, you need to do this way. No, whatever initiative people come with, be open to those and see how you can connect it to other initiatives in the region or in your own country, bring them together. And I think as a diplomat, my lesson also after 20 years is bring people together, make those connections happen. People who don't know each other even in the country. I am in the luxurious position where I can meet people on all levels and all corners of the country. Uh, and so I am in that position to be like a broker in relationships, and then hopefully to contribute to the change happening in a good way, because the change is happening anyway in this country.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no stopping that. So, without taking up too much more of your time, I was wondering if you could maybe share a few favorite anecdotes from your time here. I know you've traveled a lot personally with your family around the country, but also in your role as Consul General a lot. It seems like the Delta and the Central Highlands and all around, I suppose. So interacting with a lot of different people and stakeholders and places. But what are some things that have really jumped out to you, other than some of the things we've already discussed?
Yeah, well, I think I'm always very bad at thinking of because I think that's also involves maybe someone being ridiculed or yourself. I was talking with my mother the other day that I forget bad things. I just remember all good. It's one of my characteristics of being so optimistic myself. But I think, yeah, in terms of these trips, many places have really stuck with me. Our many moments, I could say, and well, one of them, of course, last year we were supposed to have the king and the queen visiting.
Right.
That did not happen. Maybe it will happen in the future. I won't be here anymore. But we had already rented the reunification palace. And so we did decide to let that event go ahead. And for me, this does really stick in my mind. And it was also my German colleague who said to me, well, Daniel, you really did an incredible job in the sense that you brought together the chairman of Ho Chi Minh City, who doesn't always do to events of someone else. He was there on the stage. We had our two ministers who were there, the Minister of Agriculture and the Minister of Transport, and we had all this network of these people. Of course, many of the businesses, many of the Dutch community, but also the LGBTIQ plus people. I had invited, because I appreciate them, the drag queens of Venus Drag Troupe, and
Yeah.
they came fully dressed, their feathers and outfits, which for me, we're in this very symbolic place, the Reunification Palace. You have such a colorful array of people. And again, for me, it really shows the openness. Yeah, this country, sure. Yeah, you have this idea to bring people together. Okay, let's check and talk, but it's not impossible. And for me, it was also showing you can really pull things off and make things happen. We have this great fashion show then with all these body positive and ethnic minority and transgender models on the stage with fashion designer from the Netherlands, Vietnamese. So it was also about migration, right? And the positive effect of migration on the country, having this talented woman from the Netherlands, Xuan Tu. And then the other one, this Vietnamese fashion designer who works with ethnic minority patterns. It had so many elements for me, Mike. And we had these great bands at the end, Osoko and what's their name? The Saigon Soul Revival.
Oh yeah, they're great. Yeah, yeah. I was there. That was quite an event.
Yeah,
I remember being impressed that the chairman at the time spoke really good English. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I didn't know.
but he doesn't do it normally. He doesn't do it. So it goes for me. It broke so many. You have all these preconceptions also about how this country is, and maybe they're stuck in a certain thing. But if you make the effort, you can bring people together. It opens up doors, and it was just beautiful. This lit up orange reunification palace, orange and blue.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, it really felt that event for me felt really special. And then looking at the country, I think, well, no, about Saigon, one other anecdote, of course, were our big bicycle tours. You participated in one of them, right?
Yeah. Yes, one. I think I missed the second, unfortunately.
Ah, yeah, you missed the second. But we really also, again, there, just bringing together at some point 800 people to cycle through town to promote sustainable transport, green infrastructure for something like cycling, which we both love very much.
Mm.
Uh, that was very heartwarming. And again, authorities also supported this kind of initiative, because you can't do it without them. And looking at the country, yeah, for me, Chavin as a province is very dear, so it doesn't exist anymore now. Right, the name has changed. I forget
Hmm.
where we were there. But that brings together also, you have the element of still greenery, of nature, of economic development, of Khmer culture, of farmers on this individual scale. Very beautiful place.
Hmm.
And Daklak in the Highlands also really stuck with me as a place where you also see more poverty than in other corners of the country.
Yeah.
You also see this incredible coffee culture, which, by the way, we're also quite involved in as the Netherlands, and how to do that sustainably. And I'm trying to think if I have a good anecdote. Lac Lake, swimming in Lac Lake, but that's not an anecdote.
Well, Lac Lake is beautiful.
Yeah, but it is beautiful. That whole area, and so many of these corners of the country. Yeah, and in the end, it's also the country where my kids grew up, and I've been. We both live in Tao Dien, and you've often seen me on my bicycle with my two. Just riding. We went to the hairdresser this morning. The bike, which I got 4 years ago, in the beginning it was fine to cycle with both. It was like maybe 10 extra kilos, or I don't know. Now it's like
Yeah, yeah.
55 extra kilos, and it's really time to stop that. So it's been part of my life also. This seeing these kids grow up in this city, which was also growing at the same time. Time for change of chapter, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I know it's hard to be. I'm similar. If someone were to ask me to tell some stories from Vietnam, I'd kind of freeze a little bit. But
Sure. And I'm really bad at planning. So
Yeah. Well, anyway, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your very busy last stretch here. And I know many of us will miss the great parties you've hosted at your beautiful residence over the last few years.
yeah.
But I know there's always a time to move on for diplomats. Yeah. So thanks so much again for coming on the show. And for we've just full disclosure, we've spent a lot of time together over the last few years. So I've enjoyed that very much as well. So yeah, thanks very much, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And maybe as a last word, also to say these parties have always been a way to bring people together in a fun way, which people, of course, not everybody is a fan of a costume party. I am, but I think it's actually a way to bring people together. And indeed, time to move. Janetta, my partner, who also worked here for UNDP, is going to be moving back to the ministry, and I'm actually going to go for 1 year. I'm giving you what do you call it? Primeur news. Go to work in Palestinian territories for 1 year.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, based out of so living in East Jerusalem, and then our office is in Ramallah.
Mm.
Deputy representative there for the Netherlands. So quite a change of scenery and something important also to work on.
Yes, very. Yeah, that will be interesting, I'm sure, to say the least.
Yeah, will be.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to you and the family, obviously. And yeah, thanks again, Daniel.
And thanks to you also, Mike, for all the rides that we did and for keeping the cycling spirit in this city alive. I really think you do, an incredible job on that, on bringing, again, all the cycling community together, and also many Vietnamese in your groups. And I love that. And the second thing, I really also, from the beginning, knowing the work you do, reporting on this country and making us understand and contributing also to the openness. I think that's very important work. And I really commend you also in this program, for it. And I hope you keep on doing that, Mike.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. That's it for this episode of the Vietnam Weekly podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please rate or review the show on your preferred podcast platform. See you next time.